Welcome to Running the Table, the podcast where we run through everything on the table in the world of sports. And we're going to continue our series on NFL season previews. We just did the NFC East. Now we're going to, hop across and go to the AFC East. So, Tim, are you ready to go?
Let's run it.
The first team we got is the Buffalo Bills. And instead of losing in overtime on the road in the divisional round, the Bills got smacked around at home in the snow as the favorites, and many tablets were smashed in rage. Love Ken Dorsey. What a guy. But it starts and ends with Josh Allen. He's a dynamic player through the air and the ground, but as the playoff losses pile up, questions emerge. And we aren't totally sick of the Bills yet. This isn't the early 90s, but this act of coming up short is getting kind of old.
And for Bills fans, I can imagine it's starting to get pretty frustrating.
Oh, I'm not just talking about for Bills fans. I'm talking about for the rest of us.
Still, yeah.
I'm kind of sick of it. Either win it all or shut up about winning it all. Because at this point, where the Bills are at, the expectations are Super Bowl, but when are they going to lose? Because it's not an if, it's a when. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't happen in the divisional round, it's going to happen in the championship game. Because I don't know what it is about them, whether it's just some intangible factor or
it just feels like they just get spooked somehow.
They're not making it out of the AFC.
No, I'm going to be honest, it does not.
They could have the best roster on paper in the AFC, which they don't, by the way.
Not anymore.
No. But they're not running the gauntlet. They're not going to, so to speak, run the table. And you know what? If there's something that you can book that the Bills aren't going to the Super Bowl. It's not going to happen.
Oh, I got to be honest. I 100% agree with you. And the problem is
it's not even that hot of a book it. Now, granted, I've had some terrible takes about the Buffalo Bills. Not about the Buffalo Bills, but I remember my big one last year was that the Denver Broncos would be better than the Buffalo Bills. But it was more so my incorrect belief in Denver.
Yes.
That ended up being wrong. But my non-belief in the Bills ended up being correct.
You weren't necessarily wrong that the Bills weren't to be trusted, but you just weren't right about who was actually better than them. Because here's the thing with the
Bills,
picked
the wrong team to make my point.
Yeah, oops. Last year the Bills were supposed to be oh my gosh, they've got all the tools. They're going to keep getting better. The big problem was their defense was not the defense that we were used to seeing the Buffalo Bills have.
I understand we're talking a lot about last year and it's a this year preview, but the point we're making is that last year's team is not this year's team.
And my point is I don't think their defense got better enough.
I completely agree because they didn't really do much in terms of additions. They added Jordan Phillips on the edge, Leonard Floyd. They got Cameron Dantzler, which love going against him, by the way, because he's not that great. And then Taylor Rapp for safety depth. But if you look at this defense top to bottom, they didn't add really any impact rookies on the defensive side of the ball with linebacker Dorian Williams and corner Alex Austin.
Yeah, I mean, we all know the difference in what their defense looked like when Von Miller was there and when he wasn't. That was,
and now he's starting on the pup list.
That's where it started last year. But the problem is he's not going to be able to continue to, carry and bring that spark to this defense. And the problem is I don't think they have enough around the rest of the defense to be able to collectively find that spark somewhere else. They will be better. Yes, but also part of it is where are you going to be able to keep so many of these guys healthy? That is where a lot of their downfall, or at least why their defense was as subpar, or at least compared to what they were expected to be as it was. A lot of guys, were injured with Von Miller going down. Tre'Davious White missed a ton of time. If I'm not mistaken, at least it was either one of Jordan Poyer or Micah Hyde missed significant time as well.
Poyer did.
Yeah, it was Jordan Poyer.
I miss Micah Hyde.
Yeah. Yeah. So in general, on paper, if you're able to keep all these guys healthy, they've got guys to, be a decent defense, but we've talked
Sure.
about it. And again, I will be a broken record till the day I die while we're talking about AFC, but it truly is the gauntlet. And their defense does not have enough
Could have about
to withstand.
10, 11 potential AFC playoff teams. Like we
Yeah.
thought last year was bad, and then they get better. Like a lot of the teams in the AFC are gearing up, especially one
Yeah.
in their division that we'll get to later. Like the Bills are no longer the sole contender, not just in the AFC, in their division.
No,
Like
their division, they've got teams that can challenge them on any given
like
on any
I
given
I
night.
have them going 12-5 and winning the AFC East, but that's not a guarantee like it used to be.
No. I have them going 11-6, and as we'll talk about later with said other team, I actually do not have them winning the division. I have them still sneaking into the playoffs at the 6th seed, but like you said,
Mhm.
none of this is guaranteed because there's now a lot more uncertainty surrounding this team, this roster, their stars, or the guys that really make this machine work. I mean, Josh Allen's going to continue to be Josh Allen.
Of
Stephon
course.
Diggs will continue to be Stephon Diggs, but the
If Stephon
guys
Diggs can stay
surrounding
happy,
them, yes. Again, I mean, they had their own issues, but
that was
the
smoke.
question,
That was clearly
yeah,
smoke. Stephon Diggs himself like said, "No, I want to stay in Buffalo." But like just these little rumors of, like uncontentment, like I'm not happy in this situation. I want to go somewhere else. It's definitely not the first time that the Bills in general have had a situation like that. And
yeah,
whether it be frustration from not going to the promised land and winning it all and coming up short, or it's just like the bickering Bills that they've always been throughout the history of their franchise. I mean, like what's I don't know. It's like it's the Bills, man.
and don't get me wrong, they are
I'm not gonna lie,
still
I
a good football team.
kind of forgot my point. So I just kind of rambled on.
And to be fair, that kind of
Yes,
feels like,
yeah.
honestly though, that does kind of feel like where this football team is going. They've been around like this area of, we've got these guys, like we're competitors, we're potentially Super Bowl bound, we've got everybody we need, and they just keep kind of going with the same sort of stuff and having the same sort of issues and not being able to find whatever that mystery piece is. And it kind of feels like they're randomly trailing off and they're going to start fading away in terms of contention in this AFC. That's really what it feels like. And
Yeah.
like what I was getting at is, don't get me wrong, they are still a good football team. I would consider them to still be a borderline very good football team. But the problem is there's too many very good football teams in the AFC. And there's enough uncertainty with certain positions, with certain just general aspects of this team. What will James Cook be like in the backfield for them? Can they get any amount of good rushing attack to help that offense? Will enough of their defensive pieces be able to stay healthy and put up a solid enough season to give the offense a bit of a break? I mean, that's really what their downfall was in the playoff game, is their defense couldn't stop anything. So no matter what the offense did, it felt like they were always swimming in deep waters. But
Yeah, and I remember when the defense used to be like their calling card and used to be like a key strength of
yeah,
this team. Like that was kind of the
yes,
backbone. Like, yeah, our offense
like there was
might
there was a
not
day only a
do a
couple years
thing.
ago.
And
There was
then
a day only a couple years ago where you thought the Bills and you thought, man, their defense is intimidating. That's not the case anymore.
nope.
And their offense hasn't improved enough to make up for it.
Yeah, I mean, so I guess it's not if, but
It feels
when.
like we're dogging too much on a playoff team, but it's just the fact that with where the Bills have been, they're not a team where you can talk, oh man, they'll be at the back end of the playoffs. Good for them. It's okay, so we're doing this song and dance again. What
We're
now?
look,
It feels
we're not
exasperating.
like we try to call it like it is. And what I see in Buffalo is a team that is not improving, that is at the best staying the same, and at the worst in decline.
A little
So
bit, yeah.
when you have a team that's not on that upward trajectory, it's hard to be excited about it, especially when you
Yeah.
go year after year after year, and you go, okay, is this the year? Is this the year? Is this the year? Why do you think why do we think we dog so hard on Dallas, you know?
Yeah.
And like,
well, and a big key for
and
this
that's why
team,
we asked the question, like, is this getting old, or is like, will they break through, or is this just who the Bills are?
yeah,
You know?
and for this team, this organization, I think the big pointer that comes to my mind with a lot of these other teams that, you know, we see their trajectory in the positive direction, we see them, you know, making the necessary additions, changes, whatever it is young talent. This team does not feel very chock full of young talent. Their defense is getting old.
I
They've
also
gotten
think a
some
problem.
addition.
Yeah, I also think a problem is this team hasn't drafted very well in
Not
like the
particularly.
last 2 or 3 years. There
We'll
hasn't
see what Dalton
been
Kincaid turns into.
true.
Kyer Elam has turned out pretty decently, I would say, thus far. But still, there's still a lot. The jury is still significantly out on him.
CB2.
But again, the fact that he's at least able to be there is better than a lot of teams, and they're like end of first, beginning of second round picks.
Yeah.
So I can't call him a bust per se, but he didn't, you know, they didn't get a steal
not a
by
bust.
any means.
He's not a stud.
Yes. So it's where are the improvements going to be coming from? Because you don't have enough younger guys that are making that significant jump, and all of the guys that make up, you know, most of the talent of this team are not getting younger. They're not getting much better.
That's just the Bills, baby.
Welcome to Buffalo. Jump through some tables and drink too much, I guess.
I want to go to Buffalo now. That'd be fun. Set it on fire. Let me jump through a table. I'll do it.
Honestly, after so many years of not knowing what's next or when the success is going to come.
I think it makes you crazy enough where you might want to jump through a few tables.
Yeah, I'm starting to see why that's their calling card, that fan base.
Next team we got to go through is the Miami Dolphins, and they're in an interesting spot because after making the playoffs and losing in the wild card round, they have some questions to answer, namely quarterback. How is he gonna do, and can
they keep
healthy?
him alive? I mean,
I doubt it.
Same question, kind of same answer.
I do.
Just put different way.
And I'm gonna answer our question by saying, I don't know. I don't think they can.
That's not an answer.
All right.
You can't say I'm gonna answer and say I don't know.
You know what? You got me there. You know what? I'm gonna give you an answer. No. And it's gonna go terribly because Tua had 3 concussions last year. And the offensive line was one of the worst in football, and they didn't improve it at all.
They really didn't.
Like, they didn't go into the draft and draft any offensive linemen. They drafted a running back, a receiver, and a corner with their higher draft picks that they did have because they didn't have a first-round pick because tampering. But I think this is going to be an Andrew Luck situation, but 10 times worse. Like, they're going to kill Tua. And my outlook...
For his sake, I hope not.
No.
But it's not looking good.
I want Tua to have as much success possible in the NFL. But I also want him to live a long and happy life. And if he keeps getting his bell rung like the Liberty Bell in Philadelphia, and there's a giant crack in the middle...
That's going to start looking like
decisions are going to have to be made. And that's really unfortunate. Like, first of all, just talking about like the life aspect. And it's a shame that we even have to talk about this.
He should never have been put in a situation where we have to even mention this as a possibility. You see guys get concussions. You see guys at the quarterback position.
To say that. Like, any of this.
It's not pretty. I do agree with you on the fact that, you know, they're not in a great spot.
Yeah, you have to
I have seen some blasphemous things about the Dolphins. I saw an ESPN analyst, and I could be wrong about the name, but I believe it was Mike Clay, who had the Dolphins representing the AFC in the Super Bowl. I said, oh.
No.
Like, I am of the opinion that I am a little bit more, I guess you call it, optimistic about this team than you are.
I'm
I
not.
have them going 9-8. That's still not good enough to make the playoffs, but you have them as a losing record. I don't think they'll fall apart that bad. I see where you're coming from. It very well could happen, but I don't
Well,
know if I think they'll lose that many games.
let me justify myself. I have them going 7-10.
Yeah, which
And
feels crazy, but there's reasons.
but here's the thing. The only reason that they are being considered like a playoff team is because of the explosiveness of that offense. I think that is their sole defining factor.
Explosiveness of that passing game.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. You know what? That is better said because there's not much to be excited about that run game. I mean, yeah,
Even if you
there's a
keep
little
Mostert healthy,
there's a little short guy from Purdue that's running around and
even if you
yeah,
keep
yeah,
him
yeah,
healthy,
choo
as you
choo, but he's like
pointed,
30.
no, but even if you are able to keep him healthy, which has been an atrocity for him, as you've pointed out, that offensive line hasn't done anything worth much of anything,
Squat.
especially in the run game. Obviously, the passing game is a whole nother thing. At least they were able to have some pretty good success in the passing game with Tua just getting the ball out before he gets murdered. But the run game's not there, so teams know what to key in on. And on their defense, will we see Xavier Howard become a top cornerback again? They're not getting Ramsey back for a while. You've
Until
added burnt
mid-December.
toast. You've added burnt toast to your defense.
Well,
That's
he's got his own set of issues that he's facing right now, and we will not talk about that. If you want to know what he's facing right now, go
look
somewhere
him up.
else and figure that out on your own because
Just look him up. You'll find
because
the
we're
personal
not
issues and
touching that with
things.
a 20-foot pole.
No,
But yeah, so I don't have high hopes for this defense. I think they got some
no,
studs
I
in the
don't.
interior. Christian Wilkins, Jalen Phillips, Bradley Chubb are all really good. And that secondary would be one of the best in football if Jalen Ramsey was healthy the whole time. They'll get him back in December. It's going to be a
Yeah.
big boost. Javon Holland is really good. Xavier
But
Howard,
also, where will
also
they
really
even
good.
be? Where will they be when Jalen Ramsey gets back? That's the problem. I can very well see them being at or slightly below 500 by the
You
time
know,
they get Ramsey back.
in totality, the Dolphins feel like an accident waiting to happen. They feel like a big old tower of Jenga blocks, and there's 3 Jenga blocks on the bottom that if you take one out, the entire thing falls. That's Tua, that's Jalen Waddle, that's Tyreek Hill. Those 3 guys, in order for them to make this thing work with what they have around them, you got to keep all 3 of them healthy. And especially with Tua's injury history, doubtful.
I was gonna say it feels like Tua at the bottom of that Jenga tower is a wood block that's gotten shredded and then put back together with like Play-Doh.
Oh wow. I was gonna say like Elmer's glue, but Play-Doh is far worse. What did it?
Kind of what it feels like.
Did a second
Here's the
grader
thing.
put together this Jenga
with
tower?
with Tua and the way that he is now, the problem is you can no longer expect him to take hits like a normal NFL quarterback.
I
The
don't
problem is
think
you feel
Tua's
like
a very good quarterback anyway, Tim. The
I'm
arm
simply
strength
talking
isn't there.
about
The
getting,
mechanics is bad.
regardless of how he plays when he's healthy. I'm talking about with him taking a hit.
Oh
I
yeah.
feel like it
Oh
feels like
yeah.
if he takes a hit, any one of them, even the most normal hit, could put him out a couple games. And that's the
And
problem.
look, you got Mike White, you got Skylar Thompson.
Mike White.
Those are not contingency plans. Though
No,
and,
they really aren't.
and for as much as I just said that Tua is not a good quarterback, Tua is good enough to get the ball to the speed unicorns that you have in Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. And having both of them on either side makes defenses go, oh, we got to put resources over here, got to put resources over here, can't just key in. And Tua getting them the ball, that makes the offense explosive. And that's what makes the passing game of the Dolphins fun. And last year, they were as fun as advertised. But if Tua goes out, then you got Mike White and Skylar Thompson, and I'm
Everything
not sure they can
grinds
get
to
them
a
the
halt.
ball. And if you take out either one, of Hill or Waddle, then the defense can just kind of key in on the other side. And all right, that's not taken, like that's taken away. Sorry, throw to Cedric Wilson, throw to Durham Smythe. Have fun, Dolphins. And
Yeah,
that's not going to
they
go
don't
very
even
well.
have now they don't even have Gesicki at the tight end position. So yeah, no, I totally get what
Geez,
you mean.
Tim, the more I talk about it, the more 7-10 seems generous.
I don't know about generous because
I want the Dolphins
it's
to succeed. I don't see it.
it's all revolving around injuries. And I personally can never sit here and saying I am predicting an injury that's going to mess up this team. Like
But it happens.
we know
It's
how
a
big of an
part of the
opportunity it is
game.
for it to happen. Yes, and I agree. But also the only rebuttal I have to some of what you said about that offense and with some of these injuries, if Tua goes down, the only way that I could still see them, having some general success against, some of the more mediocre teams in their schedule is you have to change your offense to turn Waddle and Hill into yak merchants rather than speed demons where you can take the top off of defenses. You just have to turn them into yak merchants because Mike White
can be.
and a pretty garbage offensive line can at least hope to get Waddle and Tyreek Hill the ball within 5 to 10 yards, and maybe you can get them, to just start flying around places and let them do something.
Yeah,
But
I
as
mean,
we
you got to
pointed
get
out,
the ball in your hands of the stars.
I totally agree with what you're talking about if one of the two receivers goes down. Because as we've pointed out, the running game has done them absolutely no favors. So then it truly becomes cluing on the one guy in the passing game. And they don't have enough anywhere else to essentially hold up that weight. The only thing that makes that offense work is that they have two elite, speedy offensive weapons at
It's
receiver.
what makes them unique and what makes them so fun to watch. Because when you are a unique football team and you have that aspect that's like unicorn and nobody else has, it creates problems for other teams and it
In
gives you
general,
an advantage.
yes, it gives you specifically, even like with the Dolphins, where you don't have a whole lot of other great stuff going on, it gives you the unique advantage of teams' rosters are not built to stop two elite wide receivers like that. A lot of teams, you try to at least have your one shutdown corner, or if you go up with a team against elite wide receiver, you know who you got to guard. I don't know if there's a single NFL roster that has two corners that you can even remotely rely on to be the essentially majority attention.
I'm gonna play devil's advocate and say Philadelphia does.
Bradbury? Really?
I
You're gonna put Bradbury on one of those two guys and say, we'll give you some help over here, but this is your job.
Thinking about the elite corner tandems in the NFL, I like my chances with Slay and Bradbury rather than in the Jets, Gardner and Reed.
I'm
The
not saying that
Packers
I'm
with
not saying
with
there's
Jair and
anybody.
Rasul.
I'm not saying there's anybody better. I'm saying you still can't do it. The Eagles have the best opportunity, the best chance, but I don't. Bradbury will just hold them.
Yeah, Super Bowl's calling. It wants its flag back. Anyway, we're going on and on about the Dolphins. We got more teams to cover. Next one being the New England Patriots, which they kind of seem like a dead team walking too, because they're a dynasty in decline. And I mean, has Bill Belichick lost his touch, or can he still put together a competent football team? Not saying that Bill Belichick is like a going senile, because he's still the greatest coach ever to walk a football sideline. You just don't really have much around in terms of like a Patriots roster that you're like, yeah, this is a playoff team. You don't really have that. I think what we've seen from Mac Jones is probably what we're going to get. And if that doesn't work, I mean, you got someone they signed off of
Didn't they release
practice
Bailey
squad
Zappi
somewhere,
which I thought was pretty
because
wild.
they released Bailey Zappi and Malik Cunningham, and they signed somebody else off of a practice squad.
Panic ensues.
I'm trying to
No, but
find it.
while you
Matt
look at that,
Corral. That's who they got to be the backup.
oh,
They
they
got
signed,
Matt Corral. That took
but
me
that
way too long because,
no,
well, Mac
let's
Jones was the only quarterback on the 53, and then they got Matt Corral off of Carolina.
let's pause for a second and look at that. Bailey Zappi comes in and puts some solid numbers for some decent time. Malik Cunningham, for the most part,
Malik Cunningham should have made the roster.
Kind of sort of tore up the preseason.
I think he earned it.
And they just push both of them aside and bring in Matt Corral? That doesn't make sense to me. Where does the logic come from on that?
Matt Corral didn't get an opportunity, and he was drafted with a day 2 pick anyway, so you kind of see what he got, and you would rather have Matt Corral that was like kind of a prospect in college as opposed to like Bailey Zappi from Western Kentucky, UDFA Malik Cunningham that was like maybe a wide receiver. I thought it was a little bit odd that Belichick went with one quarterback on the 53 anyway, but I mean,
but wouldn't it make
if
more
you're talking
sense
about guys
to keep
that can have a chance,
one of those two guys that they released? It wouldn't make sense to keep at least one of those two, even if you demote him to the practice squad?
Yes, it would, but if your aunt had balls, she'd be your uncle, and they didn't, so they're not. I get what you're saying, but like,
yeah,
that's not what they did. So,
but so hear me out with this roster. Tell me if I'm wrong. The big thing that I severely dislike about this Patriots team is I don't see almost any X factor guys. Who is going to be your X factor on this team?
and
Who's going to be the difference
agree.
maker on like almost any given day?
I completely agree. When you look at the Patriots roster, it seems like the island of misfit toys. Mac Jones, Ramondre Stevenson, Ezekiel Elliott, Juju Smith-Schuster, which people are saying his knee could explode at any moment. Spontaneous combustion from the ACL of TikTok boy. You got like Devontae Parker, Mike Gesicki, Hunter Henry.
You're talking about agree. They are a team,
and that's just not like offensively. You look on the defense, like you don't really have that much either. And you're right, it is a team of journeymen. Let's go to record predictions, Tim. You have them at 3 and 14.
I was gonna say I have not at all. Not
you
even
have
close.
Them as one of the worst teams in football. Which
I do.
I get it.
The only argument that could be said is we know what Bill Belichick is able to do with defenses that should not be as decent or as good as they are. That's their only hope of winning some games.
And that's why I have them winning 7, because Bill Belichick is going to coach them to a couple wins that they have no business getting.
The only difference or the only argument that I have of specifically why 3 and 14 is very similar to what I said about the Commanders when we talked about the NFC East. Why? I mean, I get Bill Belichick is not going to be like, let's tank, but like, what's the point of them fighting their asses off to try to win 5 games as opposed to 3?
Because you play to win the game.
Well, if they wanted to play to win the game, they should have made some better additions. Let's just say that. They're playing to existing right now.
Good point. We got one more team to go in this division, and that is the New York Jets. Normally, JETS would stand for just end the season, but now it stands for something else that's more positive because I'm not clever enough to come up with an acronym off the top of my head. And the main reason for that is they were just a quarterback away, and then you trade for Aaron Rodgers. Wow. Hype, excitement, things the Jets haven't had in a long time. They are now there. And it's kind of like the Brady effect, where Brady went to Tampa Bay and then he went, hey, you, come on down. And the Jets did that with Rodgers. They got way too many Packers. It's basically the New York Packers. Tim Boyle is on the roster. Packers legend and Lions legend, Tim Boyle. Alan Lazard, Randall Cobb, Billy Turner. I mean, Aaron Rodgers had his list, and he got most of them. They also got Dalvin Cook to fill the void while Breece Hall recovers from that ACL tear. And then you got Garrett Wilson, the offensive rookie of the year on the outside. And on the defense side of the ball, you got the defensive rookie of the year in Sauce Gardner. So,
I mean, we knew how talented this young and upcoming defense was. Now, all of a sudden, and I guess this maybe is another little bit of a hot take, and maybe it's just because I'm more of that I don't really know Jets football history that much. But could this be the most offensively talented Jets team we've seen in the 21st century?
yes.
Because I'm inclined to believe it.
Aaron Rodgers maybe might be the best quarterback the Jets have had since Joe Namath. And Joe Namath played in the 60s and early 70s. Because we're going to go through a little bit of Jets history. The quarterbacks after Namath.
You know a lot more than I do.
Richard Todd, Ken O'Brien, Boomer Esiason, Vinny Testaverde, Chad Pennington, the Sanchez.
I forgot about Chad Pennington.
The Sanchez.
The butt fumble.
Yeah. And then whatever mess you've had from like the last 10 years. And then you bring in 4-time MVP, one of the greatest quarterbacks to ever play the game, Aaron Rodgers. But B-U-T. T. But. So there's this thing about quarterbacks when they turn 40. They kind of hit a wall. And when I say kind of, I mean every QB that's not Tom Brady hits a wall. And if it's not at age 40, it's at age 41. We've seen it happen the whole way with guys like Drew Brees. Drew Brees is the main one that I can think of. Peyton Manning is another one where you get into like 39, 40, 41. Durability starts to go down. The arm strength isn't there. The experience and the decision-making and like how to run an offense, that's all still there.
How old did Big Ben get before retiring? Because that's another one that kind of comes to mind. I don't know if he got that old, but 39, you could still see this. 38, you could still 39. See the pretty significant regression in those last 2 years.
And Aaron Rodgers, granted, has a little more tread on the tires, like in terms of like, because he didn't play the first 3 years, sat behind Favre. So like that's 3 more years at the beginning they could kind of tack on to the end, but he's going to be 40. So, and hey, trust me, I would know. My lights are green. Aaron Rodgers was not good last year. There, I said it. The greatest quarterback in Packers history was not good last year. Had his worst season as a pro. And whether that was to, playing through injury, like a broken hand or, a rib, still didn't look very good. Yeah. So, and the hype is that they're getting MVP Rodgers, but how much good football does he have left in the tank? And that's the question I'm going to pose to you.
Yeah, it is the question realistically, because he makes or breaks this Jets team, this Jets roster, their entire season. I think, I don't know what secret stuff was in that dark cave, but
Michael's secret stuff
enough.
It went to Toontown,
and maybe there was. I think there is enough in his tank to at least have a.
I don't know what Aaron Rodgers has got in his tank. I don't know what kind of drugs are back there.
That is very true. Probably a medley of them, but regardless, I think there's enough in the tank for him to have a successful season, and mainly because of the fact that he is no longer in a situation where the pressure is put on him to determine the entire team's success, or so it feels. You look at the rest of this team, and this team has players that can make a difference in games without him. Garrett Wilson was the offensive rookie of the year with a terrible, terrible quarterback situation. Their defense was one of the top. I would not say it was a stretch to say.
And I think the reason I disagree with that is because Green Bay always had the horses to get to the playoffs to win a
I'm talking about last year, and the reason why Rodgers was as bad as he was in comparison to his previous seasons is because he was not in a situation where he had much help, so it seems. And he still did not look like a bottom 10, really even bottom 15 quarterback in the league. Maybe, I don't know. The 15 is where you get, kind of iffy there, because he might have been around on the middle,
hindsight is 2020, and I think you saying like he didn't have the guys around him to win. I would disagree with that, because I still think this Packers team is really, really talented without him.
When has Rodgers had his most success through his career? When he has had and been partnered with an elite wide receiver one. I'm not going to say Devontae Adams and Garrett Wilson are the same guy and are going to have the same type of success, but immediately I expect Rodgers' numbers to increase drastically, because he has a true elite playmaker that won't take 6 to 7 games to hit his stride.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm not disagreeing with you there, nor am I counting Aaron Rodgers out. That is not what I'm doing. I am the last person. I'm not drinking the Aaron Rodgers haterade at all. In fact, I want to see him do well. I think it'd be nice if he won his second ring. I'm just trying to look at this thing realistically and go, how much should Jets fans expect MVP Rodgers? Because MVP Rodgers was 20 and 21, and then 22 wasn't very good. Did not look like MVP Rodgers, but we're still not that far removed from MVP Rodgers. I'm just saying, with all of the factors, I will make a claim. The ceiling is Tom Brady's Buccaneers. The floor is Russell Wilson's Broncos. Because I can see a universe
where this goes that wide of a
horribly awry. It can, but will it? I'm not going to bet on it.
No, the odds are
record
not
predictions.
high.
You got him at 12-5. I got him at 11-6. So clearly, I'm not taking him to be Wilson's Broncos. Yeah. I mean, they do have Nathaniel Hackett. However, I can see it as a possibility. I really can.
But let me also set the record straight about everything that I just said over the past 5 minutes of me, kind of rambling about what the Jets could be.
Yeah,
I am not predicting that the Jets are like an AFC championship lock. I'm saying they are likely a playoff. I can't necessarily call them a lock, but this is a team that very well should be in the playoffs. Yeah. But I'm saying there is enough, no argument. And I truly believe that there is enough in this team that Rodgers doesn't need to carry for them to be in the playoffs. And with the weapons they have, all right, and with his ability, and also with just the general connection that we've seen even thus far between him, Garrett Wilson, the rest of the guys in the offense, bringing in Dalvin Cook to provide some just general, structure while Breece Hall continues to get back. You know how I feel about Breece Hall's ceiling and how he started last year. This team has the ceiling to be have a playoff run. I personally don't believe the Jets will even. I'll say it right now. If I had to book something, Jets, even in their ceiling, will not be in the Super Bowl. I just don't see it. I don't.
And that's weird because I can. But let me talk.
I do immediately see a playoff berth though.
For a little bit, let me talk about Aaron Rodgers and carrying teams, because I know a bit about that, right? And just what he's had in 2010 and 2011, he had a team around him that could win, and they did. 2010 Super Bowl, 2011 15-1 record, best regular season team in Packer history. They made the NFC Championship in both 2014 and 2016 with teams that probably shouldn't have been there, that Aaron Rodgers elevated and carried to NFC Championship games, which I don't think he gets enough credit for, especially in 16, because they had no business being there. They didn't really have much business being there in 14 either. But that was 9 years ago and 7 years ago, when Aaron Rodgers was square in his prime, when he was 30, 31, 32. In 19, 20, and 21, that was the emergence of a team around him and a team around him, and a lot of regular season success. 13-3 to 13-3, 13-4, pair of NFC Championship games. Aaron Rodgers ain't 32 anymore. He's 40. That's a big difference. Is the carrying ability and the elevation ability still there? I don't know. And the reason why I bring that up is because in 2020 and 2021, those were championship caliber football teams. I truly believe that. It was not just Rodgers, it was an entire team that was in a position to win Super Bowls. Did they do it? No. Could they have? Yes. Because because you go back, there are some times I was pretty confident that it was going to be the year. Granted, it hasn't been the year, but it could. So if it's not a fairy tale, is he going to be able to elevate this team? I don't know. I don't know.
I guess my argument and my point would be is, one, I don't think you can sit here and tell me that Aaron Rodgers is not a top 7 quarterback in the AFC. And two, I don't think you can sit here and tell me that the complete rest of the rosters on all of these teams, that Jets are not in the top 7, top 5 there. And all of those things combined, put together with the young talent and so many of these guys who should be continuing to get better from last year, I think they can do enough self-elevating that it's no longer necessarily Rodgers' job to do enough of the elevating. Especially the fact that if you look at what this Jets team did with a quarterback that not only wasn't doing them any favors, but felt like it was holding them back, that elevation and just the talent level at the position alone, in my opinion, again, should be enough to bring them to immediate playoff.
Theoretically speaking, this team should be in the playoffs. But it's why you play the game. And that's all we got for that's all we got for our AFC East preview. We covered that division. We've gone through a few others before. If you haven't watched those, go check them out. If you want to catch us, we're available on all podcast platforms where podcasts are found, and of course on YouTube. So if you want more from us, like and subscribe. And until next time, we out.